And welcome back to the West's Best podcast. As always, I am your host, Dan Wetstein, with my co host, Quinn Thomas. And as always, we are going to be covering the biggest storylines across the nation. We got a lot of fun stories for you today, everywhere from Jokic winning MVP and making Philly cry, all the way down to athletes defecting to baseball. We're going to break all that down for y'all today. But first off, as y'all should know, we are going to start off with the greatest big man in the league today. Personally, my favorite player, as you all know, that is the Joker. Nikola Jokic wins the MVP. As we said, Philly is crying. I've been dealing with the crybaby on Twitter all day. He's really hurting in his feelings and is quite fun and delicious for all of us here in Mile High Basketball. But I want to get Quinn's idea of whether or not this was the right choice or should it have been Embiid. So Quinn, go ahead.
I don't think it was the wrong choice. I think it could have been Joel Embiid winning the MVP. I think Embiid had an incredible season. And I think if they had ended up going with Joel Embiid, I don't think a lot of people would have complained or should have complained in outside of Denver, frankly. But that being said, Jokic had an MVP type year. I mean, he was a record break. He broke a record for like most efficient season, if I'm not mistaken. So he had an incredible year. He deserved to win MVP. He deserved it last year, and I'm glad he did. But that being said, if Giannis or Embiid had won it, I would not have had a problem with that either.
I wouldn't have had as much of a problem with Giannis as I do Embiid. Because, yes, I am biased. As you all know, I am a Nuggets fan. So we'll go ahead and get that out of the way up front. But it is so much more than the bias. This man had a historical season. He didn't just have a good season, he didn't just have a great season. He had a season that nobody, literally nobody, has ever seen before. With not just the efficiency, the playmaking, the scoring, he does everything. He even plays top 15 defense on top of everything else that he does on the floor. There is no peer to Jokic. So, yes, Jokic was the right pick. Embiid scores a lot. Big deal.
He also
Who
plays great
cares?
defense.
He does play good defense. Yes, I will give him that. He scores a lot and he plays defense. But again, Jokic does it all. You can give Embiid one or two things over Jokic, but everything else is in Jokic's favor. So yes, Embiid had a great season. Just unfortunately for him, Jokic had a better one. That's just plain and simple how it is. So Philly fans, y'all can keep crying. Y'all can keep staying in my mentions. I will enjoy every minute and I will lap up every single one of your pathetic tears. Like, it's absolutely insane to me to see almost the entire East Coast lose their mind. Like Quinn said, there wasn't technically a wrong answer. I mean, to me, obviously there is. But Giannis, Embiid, Jokic all had MVP type seasons. But it's about who had the best season. That was Jokic. Period. This whole crap of, oh, he led the league in points, they had a better record. So what? Embiid also had a much better team around him. So I don't see why there is an argument here other than Philly fans just being in their feelings.
I actually disagree with that. I think there's much more of an argument to it, and I think part of it's going to be addressed when we talk about the Heat Sixers playoff series. And I think that Embiid has, while he's got a better team around him than Jokic did, Embiid is the heart and soul of that team, and he is obviously their most valuable player. But when he is on the court, this has actually become a series. We've talked about in the first two episodes of this with without him, this isn't a competition whatsoever. The Heat are going to steamroll through him. And you saw him come back in a mask when he probably shouldn't be playing and put Philadelphia back into the series. Not only back into the series, but he's tied the series. So by saying that he can't be an MVP because he's been, on a better team this year, I don't really buy that. I also don't buy that they I mean, Embiid is a significantly better defender than Nikola Jokic is. Jokic can still defend, and he is a better passer, and he is still great offensively. But Embiid is significantly better at defense. He's better at scoring because he scores more. He had a better scoring season. I just don't think that it's as black and white as you're making it out to be. Did Jokic deserve to win MVP? Absolutely. Would I have been upset if Embiid had won MVP? No. Did he deserve to win MVP? Sure. They both did. So did Giannis. I don't think it's black and white, and I don't think that there was a wrong answer here.
Okay, I need to clarify. I did not say Embiid didn't deserve the MVP. I said Jokic deserved it more. Again, I am not taking anything away from Embiid. He is a great player. He's the second best big man in the league. That is not a knock. That is just simply a fact. Jokic
You
is
said
the
that there
best
was
big man.
you said there was no argument for Embiid winning the MVP.
I'm saying there is not because, like you said, the only things that you can give Embiid over Jokic is he scores more and he plays better defense. That's literally it. That is the only two things that Embiid has on Joker when it comes to playmaking, shot, just clearing up the floor, clearing up the mess. He's got the nickname the Big Tipper for a reason. He might not be the greatest defender, but he is one of the best on the offensive boards. So he's even got that on Embiid. Not by much. I'm not saying that he's far and above Embiid when it comes to those things, but when you take all of those things and put them together, Jokic is here, Embiid is here. That's just simply how it is. I know Philly fans want it to be different. I know a lot of East Coast people want it to be different because it's a bigger market, a bigger team, yada, yada, yada. I am so tired of the argument. Well, it's always been the best player on the team with the best record. Well, in that case, it's still not Embiid. So I don't understand how Philly even uses that argument, but they do. And again, the only thing that any Philly fan or any defender of Embiid ever comes with is, oh, who won the scoring title? Who cares? Who destroyed every other metric? I mean, literally every other metric when you lay them side by side. When you take away scoring and you take away defense, Jokic is heads and shoulders above Embiid.
I feel like scoring and defense are pretty important aspects to center's game.
Yes, of course, but again,
so you can't really take those away.
Sorry, Jokic is no. I'm saying with those two things being the only things that Embiid has. Again, if you take those away, there's nothing else. I understand that those are important things to a center, but when you can do those things at a high level, because it's not like Jokic is a bum on defense or is a bum when it comes to scoring. I mean, the man has set every record for triple doubles ever over the last couple of years. So you can't say that he's a slouch in any of those areas.
He's not a slouch.
It's not that big of a difference between the two in those two areas. And then you take Jokic's other things that he does, that's what puts him above. Like Embiid's defense and scoring gets him close, but everything else that Jokic does is what sets him above Embiid. That's not a mean thing to say, and it's not disrespectful. It's just what it is.
I think there needs to be, in terms of the whole award system, there needs to be more like cut and dry metrics to decide who wins these awards, because there isn't. There's this debate. All right, is it the best player on the best team? Is it the guy who had the best scoring season? Is it the guy that if you took him away from his team would be this X amount worse? So, I mean, you can look at that and there could be like 10 different MVPs depending on how you quantify it. And I think the same is, Draymond Green earlier was pointing out the problem with the voting in the most improved player. Why is Ja Morant a most improved player when he was a star last year? Jordan Poole was in the G League last year and didn't win most improved. He wasn't even a finalist for that. So, I mean, I think that all of this boils down to there were three right choices for MVP, and they went with one that was right, of course. Nikola Jokic deserved to win an MVP, but I think there needs to be a little bit more clarity on who's going to win the MVP and what you have to do to win the MVP.
I mean, I think we can all say that we agree, clarity, communication, things of that nature would be helpful. I mean, especially in these debates, but at the same time, would we have these debates if we had all that information? Would that kind of take away some of the fun? I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword I see there, but I mean, clarity I don't think is ever really a bad thing at the same time. So
no, it's not a bad thing. And not only that, but it's not just, you don't vote on who the MVP is so you can have debates on podcasts or on ESPN or what have you. You have a debate on MVP so you can see who the most valuable player was, and that's going to directly affect their next contract. So I think it's more so than just having a debate. I think it's important to figure out who the actual MVP is and list off what exactly makes that MVP.
I got you. So I think we've pretty much beat this dead horse. So going from the right choice to the wrong choice, I will sit here and say, I said Philly has no chance. That even with Embiid coming back, even possibly in Game 3, they still had no chance. It was just the Heat were just playing too well, too together, and Embiid wouldn't make any difference really at that point. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. Embiid comes back in the mask. All of a sudden, Heat and Sixers are tied. Can the Heat defend Embiid and retake control of this series in Game 5? I got something in my eyes. I'm sorry, guys.
I mean, they can. Of course, I don't know if they can defend Embiid. It's kind of hard to defend one of the most dominant forces on the inside in today's game, in the last decade, really. I mean, they could. Bam Adebayo is a great center. I don't think that he really matches up great with Embiid just because Embiid is so big. Now, I think I like the Sixers in this series just because if first of all, if James Harden's going to score 30 plus points, the series is over. If James Harden's going to play like we expected James Harden to play like, then the series is over. But like he hasn't done that consistently ever in the playoffs. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to take last night as the new James Harden or a fluke. But if he does, I really like the Sixers. I also really like Tyrese Maxey. He's a great player. He's a good complementary player to Embiid. So I mean, we're headed the series is headed back down to Miami. I see Miami taking game 5. I see Philadelphia winning the next 2.
Okay, so you're saying Philly in 7.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold prediction after the way that this started. It's been a crazy series. I mean, Heat goes out to a 2-0 series lead with no Embiid. Embiid comes back he can't be 100%. Because if y'all don't remember what happened to the man, he had his eye socket busted. Like, the man still doesn't have clear vision out of that eye. And he's still going out here and doing the things on the court that are absolutely insane.
Sounds like an MVP
I
to
love
me.
that. Second best player in the NBA. Anyways, I love that you brought up James Harden because a lot of people want to talk about the return of Embiid, rightfully so. But again, nobody wants to talk about Harden and his 31. And I think it's due to what you said. The fact that he has not ever repeated a performance like this in the playoffs. If I agree with you, if Harden goes off for 30 a night, it's over. Philly, I won't even say 7. I'll say Philly in 6. It's done if Harden can do that. But again, you can't trust Harden in the playoffs. He has such a soft game that when it comes to the playoffs, he doesn't get the fouls that he needs to rack up those points. And so I can't trust him either. I say the Heats win at least tonight at home, and they have a great chance to win this series in 6 at home. So I don't have as much confidence in you, but again, I think Harden does do a little bit more. He's not going to score 30 a night, but I think he'll probably hit the 20. It seems like a switch flipped in that game. I don't want to
he was
trust him.
shooting the lights out from 3.
Yes. If he can do that, it's over. I'll say, you know what? I'll go with you. I'll go Sixers in 7. If Embiid can stay healthy and he keeps playing the way he does, like you said, Bam's great, but he just doesn't have enough in the trunk to stay in the paint with Embiid. Embiid's just too big, too physical, and the Heat they don't have anybody on the floor that can match his physicality and his athleticism at that size. So unfortunately for Heat fans, I know y'all came into this real hot, real heavy, talking all y'all crap for the 2-0 lead. I was right there with you. We all get to eat egg on the face in this one. I'm going with you, Sixers in 7. Embiid's just too much for that Heat squad.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid doesn't have to be 100%. He's the biggest guy on the court. Bam is an elite defender, an elite shot blocker. He very well could have been the defensive player of the year. He can guard 1 through 5. Problem is he's 6'9".
Exactly. That's you can have all the fast hands and everything you want. like a Draymond Green, things of that nature. But once you get to somebody that's just that big, that physical, and that nasty in the paint, there's just nothing you can do. Like you just heard everything Quinn just said about Bam. He can defend 1 through 5 unless that 5 is just that big and that physical. And I mean, you even saw it with with Jokic. Like I don't want to go back to that, but I'm just saying, like back in the regular season, when the Nuggets whooped up on the Heat, it was because Bam could not do anything because Joker was just so much bigger, so much more physical in the paint. So it seems to be a theme with teams that have a really good big man. They can manhandle the Heat, and that's going to be their Achilles heel unless they do something in the offseason to change it. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You just got real quiet. Like I didn't even hear anything in the background. I thought I lost you there for a second. Excuse me for. I'm sorry. Let me get back here. Sorry, I got something stuck in my throat, and I didn't want to cough in y'all's ears. So, getting back to this, I think we got enough on the Sixers. So, moving from the powerful in the paint to the powerful on the field, we are going to give you our post-draft power rankings, which is the best top 5 teams in the NFL according to us. These are our rankings, so if you don't like them, too bad. Go tell your mama. I don't know what else to tell you. But I will go ahead and go first. My top 5 in the NFL right now are we'll go 5 to 1. Number 5, I know y'all knew I had to put these boys in there. It's my guys, the Denver Broncos at 5. Number 4 is the Kansas City Chiefs because of Patrick Mahomes. I know there's a lot of questions around their wide receivers, things of that nature, but to me, Patrick Mahomes, you just got to give him that respect. Even though I hate the Chiefs as a Broncos fan, I had to put them at number 4. Number 3 is the Buffalo Bills. They've made all the right moves. I still question giving even one of my favorite players of all time, Von Miller, $100 million. But I digress. Everything else that they've done this offseason screams a team that knows what they need, and they got it. And the Buffalo Bills have added to the defense and the offense in perfect ways, between Kyer Elam being the opposite side of Tre'Davious White to the undervalued signing of Jamison Crowder to go ahead and take over the slot from Cole Beasley. All of these moves were deft and intelligent. Bills, number 3. Number 2, I don't know why so many are disrespecting the Bengals. I've seen so many power rankings where they have these guys like 7, 8, 9. I mean, these guys just went to the Super Bowl, and the only reason they lost is because they didn't have an offensive line, and they have shorn up that offensive line to protect Burrow. You got to give them their respect. They're number 2. And then the number 1 team, because again, I don't understand the disrespect here. I've seen a lot that do not have this team at number 1. They just won the Super Bowl. Until they are unseated, they have to be the best team in the league. That is the Los Angeles Rams. I know they didn't have much in the draft, but all the moves they made before the draft, in free agency, and post-draft with undrafted free agents and some other signings is absolutely intelligent. I mean, the F them picks should be their motto, and they are waving that flag proudly. They deserve to be number 1. So that's my top 5. What about you, Quinn?
All right. Well, I'm going to start with a homer pick because you did. I'm going to put the Saints at number 5. I actually feel pretty good about this. It's fair to look at me like I'm crazy, but you know what? Come back January, we'll have the same conversation. Jameis Winston's going to be healthy, hopefully at some point. And if he protects the ball like he did in the first 7 games of last year, they'll be just fine. We got Chris Olave in the draft, good number 2, potentially number 1 receiver next to Michael Thomas, who will be back and healthy. And then Alvin Kamara as one of the best running backs in the league. So their offense has the weapons. They've got a good offensive line. And then this is now a defensive-minded team, and they improved the defense year over year. So they've already got an elite defense. They're getting some pieces back on the offensive side. All Jameis Winston has to do is be smart and protect the ball. Now, that's a big has to do. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting because Jameis Winston doesn't have a history of doing that. But he showed flashes of doing that last year without the weapons that he's going to have this year. So I think putting them at 5 is not as egregious as probably a lot of you were thinking right now. Number 4, I'm going to put the Cincinnati Bengals at 4. I think a lot of what got them to the Super Bowl is that Cinderella story, and they were overachieving last year. They're a very good team. Their offensive line got better. Their offense is really good, and their defense is really good. Unfortunately, they retained Eli Apple, and that's going to that pretty much prevents them from being higher than that because Eli Apple is terrible, and I just don't like him. I'll be completely honest with that. I don't like him on Twitter. I don't like him on the field. He gets cooked, and you never want to burn an apple. It doesn't taste good.
We still get the memes though.
He's just so bad, and he's so arrogant for being so bad.
He is. He really
it doesn't
is.
make sense. It just really doesn't make sense. All right, 3. Unfortunately, I'm going to put the Bucs at number 3. Tom Brady just never ages. He's back. It's still a good team. They lost a lot of pieces. They were in salary cap hell, but it's going to be a good team. I actually don't think they're going to win the NFC South. I think the Saints are probably going to win the NFC South just because they like to beat up on the Bucs in the regular season. But I do think that they're overall a better team and will probably go further in the playoffs. Number 2, I'll put the LA Rams. Again, it's just such a good team. It's like the Nets of the NFL, but a team that can actually play together. Matthew Stafford's a great quarterback. Cooper Kupp is a top 5 wide receiver. They've got a good defense. It's just like they've got stars at pretty much every single position. So it's hard to put a team above them. I will do that right now because I do think there is one team that is better than them, and pretty much, in my opinion, hands down the best team in the league, and that's the Buffalo Bills. They did a lot of work in the offseason. They very well could have been in the Super Bowl last year. It just came down to a coin flip of why they didn't get to play the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, and I think they probably would have beaten the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen is that dude. He is this is always said about Aaron Rodgers, but he is a bad man. He is such a good quarterback. Stephon Diggs is such a good receiver. And then they've got a lot of good pieces on the defense. They got Von Miller, Tre'Davious White's back. It's a good team, and they're continuing to learn and grow more. You only when you lose in a playoff game, especially against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, there are 2 things you can do. You can strike everything down and rebuild, or you can reload, get better, learn from that loss, come back next year with a vengeance, and end up winning that game. And I think that's what the Bills are going to do this year.
Yeah, I love all your points, especially on the Bills, and I get where you're coming from with the Saints. I don't have them in my top 5 for one simple reason, and that's Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
They're still in my top 10 because of the rest of that team, but just because of the uncertainty that is Jameis Winston. If he plays like he did at the beginning of last year, y'all are good. If he plays like he did in Tampa, it's over. So until I see which Jameis, I can't quite put him in the top 5, but they're just outside my top 5 because of just how stacked the rest of that roster is. And like I said, with the Bills, you hit everything. Josh Allen is a bad man in every sense of the word. And I will even put him at this point above Aaron Rodgers as being a bad man because he can do everything Rodgers can and then some. Rodgers can't run like that. Josh Allen runs like a running back and throws like a quarterback. He's everything Saints fans wish Taysom Hill was. Sorry, I had to throw that shot in there. But no, for real, I can't argue too much with yours. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, we know what Taysom Hill is now. Thank God Dennis Allen came out and said he's not a quarterback, he's the tight end. Fantastic, great. Taysom Hill is a really great athlete. And he's an athlete that can throw the ball. That's cool. He's not an NFL quarterback. I don't think anyone ever thought that he was going to be the next Josh Allen. And if they did, they shouldn't be watching football.
I would have an argument that Sean Payton did.
Listen.
For all the great that Sean Payton did, I love Sean Payton. I'm not here to bash Sean Payton. I love him as a coach. His offenses have always been one of my favorites to watch. But what was his deal with Taysom? Like that was the craziest
he saw how fast he was.
I've ever seen.
He saw how fast he was, how physically tough he was, how smart he was. saw that he could throw the ball, and he thought, if I can help this guy develop with Drew Brees and he can learn how to be a pocket passer while also using his physicality and athleticism, then he could be a Steve Young type. Granted, that never happened because when he was actually put under center and given the ball as a quarterback, he couldn't combine his athleticism and his running ability with being a pocket passer. I don't think he had the physical, like the awareness and I don't want to say he isn't smart, but I don't think he had all the tools to combine everything and put it together as a quarterback. I think he was trying too hard to be Drew Brees instead of being Taysom Hill.
I can agree with that. That honestly reminds me of Josh McDaniels and Tim Tebow. It's like they saw all those traits and instead of like, you know what, you could be great at another position. They were just like, this is going to make me the greatest coach in NFL history because I'm going to take this athlete and make him a quarterback. But that doesn't work past college. And even in college, depending on where you play, that doesn't work out very well. You cannot
Sure,
turn
but
an
then he tried to
athlete
be a
into
tight
a
end.
quarterback. Yeah, now he's going to try to be a tight end, just like. And I mean, and isn't that even more perfect of an analogy because that's exactly what Tebow tried. But at least Taysom didn't decide he wanted to go and try baseball. That was the worst thing ever. You ever seen Tim Tebow swing a bat? Oh my God, it's so ugly. Anyways,
Yeah, but when he hit the ball, it went
but
pretty far.
what did he have, like like a 150 batting average?
Listen, that's
Like
not what
it
I
was
said. I said
insane.
when he hit the ball, it went pretty far. Just like when I
I'm just saying
golf, when I
that
hit a drive right
85.
down the middle of the fairway, it goes pretty far. It doesn't happen often, but it's really cool when it does.
Yeah, I was just bringing up to show that's like 15% of the time. That's bad. But
I'm
no,
aware.
for real.
Again,
Like,
I'm a terrible
yeah,
golfer.
no.
I swing as hard as I can all the time. I lose pretty much every single ball that I buy.
I'm
But
happy
when I
Gilmore.
hit that drive right down the middle of the fairway, everyone is like, "Oh my god, yeah, that's what I bring
Yes.
to the game, and that's what Tim Tebow brought to baseball." But I
Yes.
digress.
Yes. I get you. Yeah, no, I'm happy Gilmore, so don't feel bad. I'm just that guy out there just whacking at stuff and sees what happens. So we're in the same boat when it comes to our golfing aptitude. But no, I mean, getting back to this, I completely get where you're going. I can't argue too much with him, but I just don't understand how, at the very least, the Super Bowl winning squad is not number one. Like, I don't understand how people say that one team that didn't even make the championship game. You can make the argument if it was just a coin flip or whatever. Yes, Josh was insane that game against the Chiefs. Every time that Mahomes did something, he responded. He didn't get a chance, but again, that's the rules of the game. So it is what it is. I still hate that they're talking about changing the overtime because of it, but the fact still remains: the Los Angeles Rams are the Super Bowl team, and the only player of any significance that they lost was a guy they got halfway through the season in Von Miller, and he's now in Buffalo getting 100 million. But that's still the same squad that just won it
Odell,
all. He didn't play in the Super Bowl outside of the first half of the first
that's one
quarter,
game though.
and he
He
blew
was
his
a
knee
big
out.
reason why they got there.
Well, I understand that,
I'm
but
not
they get
saying that
Robert
that's not a
Woods
good team.
back.
That's a really good team, and my Super Bowl prediction as of
Yeah,
now, I mean, it's a long way away, is going to be the Bills and the Rams. I just think the Bills are better, and they match up
I
better
agree.
against that team. And the Bills have only gotten better, and the Bills had a really good chance of making it to the AFC Championship game and potentially the Super Bowl. And I think if that was a Super Bowl matchup, this is a lot of ifs, whatever. I think they matched up better against the Rams last year too.
Eh, I get that argument, but still, just to me, the team that hasn't like if this was like say the Falcons when they went to the Super Bowl and then were dismantled in the offseason, or several other or the 2015 Broncos for a closer home example, after they got dismantled in that offseason, the next season they completely sucked. I get dropping those types of teams down, but this one hasn't lost anybody. Like you said, yeah, there's
Sure, but
Odell and Miller, but they get Robert Woods back. They added some, pass rushers in the offseason. They added more talent later on in the draft. And this team seems to be very good at finding late round picks because they have to, because they trade away all of their first, second, and third rounders. So it's just, to me, They
Sure, and they're
have
also going to get
to
a
be
full
number one.
season of Cam Akers. They're also going to get a full season of Cam
Yes.
Akers, provided he stays healthy. That's fine. But at the same time, when was the last time you saw a team repeat as a Super Bowl champion?
The last time was, God, wasn't it the Patriots?
It's been a long time, is my point.
Yeah, it's been a long. No, I get you. That just like hit me. I was like, wow, that has been a really long time because I think the last one was the Patriots,
So,
their last
yeah,
back to
they're
back.
still a great
But yeah,
team, and they're going to be another contender this year, and they've got a shot. I just really like the Bills, and I don't think it's egregious putting them at number one, even though the Rams
no,
are coming off a Super Bowl win.
I won't say it's egregious. I will agree with you there. It's just to me until the champ is unseated because yes, it's been a long time since a repeat, but it's also been a long time since we've seen a Super Bowl team be able to keep themselves together as well as the Rams. Almost every other team has had significant pieces either disappear or get injured. So that's another big thing. We are in the offseason. OTAs are about to start. We're going to start seeing players go down. So this could change very drastically very soon. But to me, until something like that happens, me personally, I have to put them at one, and I can't understand how they can't be there. Again, that's just a personal thing. I'm not saying that what you're doing is egregious because the Bills are a squad. They are studded from top to bottom. But to be just the two teams that went to this actually made it to the Super Bowl, regardless of coin flips, they got to be 1 and 2 because again, Cincinnati just hasn't sat on their laurels. They've went out and shored up a lot of the holes that cost them a Super Bowl that they really should have won. The Rams did kind of steal that, so there's that little bit of a tincture there of why I can understand why I say it's not egregious. I shouldn't say I understand, but why I can say it's not egregious. But um, yeah, I guess it's a tit for tat, tomato tomato when it comes to those guys. But again, to me personally, it's just got to be the Rams number one. But let's go ahead and go from power rankings to the powerless racist pizza makers, ex Papa John's CEO John Schnatter, I don't even know how to say his name and I don't care, claims Daniel Snyder and Jerry Jones hate Goodell and wanted John to get him fired. So, do you give any credence to this, or is it just another rich idiot desperate to stay relevant?
I mean, do I believe that these two owners hated one of the worst commissioners in sports, and if it wasn't for Major League Baseball, would be the absolute worst commissioner in sports? No, I don't. I totally believe that. Of course, there are probably more owners that hate Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell is a bad commissioner, objectively. Now, why is Papa John talking on this? Papa John has had his fair share of controversies, not to mention he has really terrible pizza. Great garlic knots, terrible pizza.
Yes.
And like the article that this is coming from is all about the national anthem controversy. And what did Papa John want Roger Goodell to do? I don't understand. Sure, I totally believe that two owners wanted him to be fired. I would like him to be fired, but I don't. Why are we talking about this right now? It seems like such a bizarre thing to come from a former pizza chain CEO talking about an NFL commissioner.
Yeah. I don't. My biggest thing is okay, again, like you said, I completely believe that there are several owners beyond Snyder and Jones that hate Goodell. But why would the guys that can fire him, because Goodell does work for the owners, why would they ask a pizza CEO to get him fired? Like, that's the part that gets me. It's like, that's why I say to me, it's just a rich idiot desperately clinging on to relevance. He lost his franchise. He's no longer the CEO. He's no longer on the board. I mean, Shaq has more power at Papa John's than the actual Papa John. So to me, this is just a right wing nut. And I say that with credence. I'm not just calling him a right wing. This man speaks at CPAC. Okay, he's literally a guest speaker at almost every CPAC since he dropped the N word on a call and it got leaked. So I'm not just
Well,
throwing out titles. That's what this man is.
likes that.
Yes, exactly. So they embraced him, and the story came from Jason Whitlock, the biggest Uncle Tom out there. I will say that with all of my chest. And Whitlock, you can come at me. I don't care. I bet you that you can't catch me. That's all I got to say. But no, I mean, so you see where the public where it's coming from, the type of show that he was on, the type of person he's on. And if you don't know, Jason Whitlock is on Fox Sports, owned by Fox, and we all know who Fox is. So this to me just screams of the right wing looking for any way they can dredge up the stupidity of any of this. Like you said, this is all about Papa John's being mad still that Roger Goodell didn't stamp out the national anthem protests fast enough. Like Quinn said, like, what was he supposed to do? Like, are they just supposed to blackball every player that kneeled, beside not just Colin Kaepernick? I mean, you helped them destroy a man's career. Was that not enough for you? Are you just mad because yours got destroyed afterwards? That karma came to get you? Like, none of this makes any sense. I just wanted to bring it up to let y'all know just how stupid this man is and this story is. And it was just fun for me. That's really why I brought it up, because I get to talk crap about an idiot. So that was my fun.
I think that's fine. I think it's a nothing story. I also I don't know why Dan Snyder's still an owner in the NFL. So any story with him and Papa John, like, I don't want to pay too much attention to stuff like that.
I don't want to pay too much. So let's go from racist to just people that suck. And that is, we all know the Reds suck, but it doesn't seem enough people want to talk about the Red Sox and the fact that they are sitting 10 and a half games in last place in the NL East after being off-season heroes. Do you see them being able to turn it around and becoming the contenders they're supposed to be? Or is this the Red Sox?
I mean, were they supposed to be legitimate title contenders? I don't think they were. Now, I think they're going to end up being better than how they are. I don't think they're going to finish last in a division with the Baltimore Orioles. So I don't know if I see them even making the playoffs, but I don't think I had them making the playoffs before the season started. I think they'll probably end up fourth in this division. The division's too good for them to be any higher, especially if they're going to play like this. They've got some good pieces on that team, but that pitching staff is putrid, especially without Chris Sale pitching right now. So you've got Nate Eovaldi and you've got an injured Chris Sale, and there are a few other guys that can be good. But, like, honestly, did we really expect the Red Sox to be title contenders in a division with the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Tampa Bay Rays?
I don't believe that they were title contenders, but I do believe a lot of folks thought they were going to be playoff contenders, at least for the wild card, because of the offseason sign. You know, the big splash signing of Trevor Story, which has not worked out at all. I don't know what's going on with my guy over there in Boston, but he's only hitting like 250. I think he's got one home run and just a handful of ribbies this far into the season. But that offense, that's the biggest thing to me, is that if nothing else, that team should hit. They've hit 15 home runs total. The whole team has hit 15 home runs so far this season. That's going to correct itself. Anemic.
That's going to correct itself. You've got Rafael Devers, you've got Xander Bogaerts, and you've got Trevor Story. My issue is with a lot of baseball teams that think going out and signing a top free agent is going to turn your team around or keep you in title contention or whatever you think it's going to do. This is baseball. There are 25 to 26 men on your roster that need to contribute for a good team. It has nothing to do with the top end. You see the Phillies doing this as well. They're so top heavy with no depth and no defense, but that's a conversation for a different day. That they're not going to be the team that they think they should be because they don't have the depth. You look at a team that actually is successful. Let's talk about the 107-win Giants from last year. And of course, I'm bringing this up, but I know most about them, so it's easy for me to speak on. Look at the stars they had. Name one. Exactly. Buster Posey in the last year of his career. But the reason they were successful is because they had depth and they had good, solid players, and they didn't go out and spend a ridiculous amount of money on Bryce Harper, or they didn't go out and spend a ridiculous amount of money on Trevor Story. It's not that they didn't try to do that, but there's a there's a limit that they don't want to go above, so they can have other players contribute at the bottom end of this roster, because it's a 162 game season, and the odds are you're not going to have one star lead your team for 162 games. And even if he is playing every game for 162 games, he's going to have slumps, and you're going to lose games. You need a full roster of guys that can contribute on a nightly basis or every other night, or whatever you want to do, if you're platooning them or not. But you need depth in a major league roster. It's not just about one guy. That's why when the Red Sox signed Trevor Story, or the Rockies signed Chris Bryant, it makes no sense. If you don't have a good team around these guys, it doesn't matter how much you pay one guy. It's stupid.
I agree. I completely agree with everything you said, and I even want to go farther. Like, it's not just the 25 or 26th man on the roster. You have to have depth in your minor leagues, because you are never going to get through a season with just 25 or 26 guys. It's going to take somewhere between 30 and 40 guys, depending on how lucky you are with injuries, to get through a 162 game season. So depth is absolutely a must. And I agree with you. Even as a Rockies fan, signing Chris Bryant at 180 million when you have absolutely no depth in your system is asinine. And you're correct. In baseball, it's not just about the stars. Yes, you got to have stars in your lineups to contend, but it's what does that 8th or 9th guy in the lineup do? What does that bench player do in a big spot when your star is hurt or they need a day off, but you're still playing a division rival, so you need that win? What does that bench player do? Do they go out and give you an 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, or do they go out and give you a 2 for 4 with a couple singles and an RBI? There's a big difference between those two stat lines. So
yeah, absolutely. And then 100%. You look at someone, if someone goes down, right? Someone goes on the injured list or gets COVID, and you got to call someone up from AAA. I mean, how are you preparing these guys from AAA? How are you investing in these AAA guys? I want to bring an example with Luis Gonzalez, who got called up for the Giants. Again, talking about the Giants because I know the most about them. But Luis Gonzalez was in the White Sox organization as a top prospect, went on the 60-day IL, and he got cut by the White Sox because they didn't want to pay him while he rehabbed. Giants swooped him up, put him on their 40-man roster, and it happened that Mike Yastrzemski got COVID. So they needed to activate a left-handed hitting outfielder, and they call up Luis Gonzalez, who's hit over 300 in his time with the Giants. He's played okay defense. He's got a good arm, and he's a smart ball player and has good at-bats. He's the reason that we've won a few games. Not every game. The Giants went through a little bit of a swoon, but I mean, just adding him to that roster, having someone you can plug in and give you quality at-bats, quality defense, and quality like other tools around the diamond is the difference between really missing a starting player and being able to bridge the gap until that player can come back. The problem I see with the Red Sox is they're also pretty top heavy. They've got Trevor Story, they've got Devers, they've got Bogarts.
Yeah.
And
no, I hear you.
Some other guys.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. And they've got some other guys. That's just about it. I don't know what their depth situation is, but will they finish better than where they are now? Absolutely. Are they going to come in last in a division with the Orioles? Absolutely not. Is their offense going to wake up? Probably. Is their pitching going to get better? Probably. I see them as a 500 team missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weirdest part about this team. Is like what you've really hammered on is that rotation and the bullpen are sketchy. That's actually been the strength of this team so far. They have a team ERA below 3.5, and they have a team FIP just over 1. So it's been the opposite of what everybody expected. Everybody expected this team to have to outslug teams, and it's actually been the opposite, is that they've been able to pitch, but they can't hit. So I do agree with you. I do believe that those things will correct themselves. They will come back to the mean. The pitching will get a little bit worse. The hitting will get a lot better. So it's going to help balance things out. But I agree with you. I don't know if I'll say that they'll miss the playoffs completely, but I do think they have a legit shot at that second wild card. Like, I'm not going to say they're going to get the first wild card, and they're dang sure not winning that division. Not with the Yankees and the Rays at the top of it, but also they're not going to be at the bottom. Oh, and the Blue Jays, sorry. And Blue Jays are definitely better
than where they are now. They've got a minus 10 run differential. With that offense, that's not going to
Right.
continue. I don't know if I see them making the playoffs. I don't think they've got a shot. I really don't think they've got a shot. There are too many good teams in the American League. You talk about the Yankees, you talk about the Rays, you talk about the Blue Jays just in their division. You go to the Central, you talk about the Twins, you talk about the White Sox. I honestly think Cleveland is probably a better team than the Red Sox at this point. Then you go to the West, you've got 3 teams that can make a push at the playoffs. 4 no, Rangers, I'm not going to give them a shot because they're, again, top heavy. They spend a lot of money in free agency and have no depth to show for it. But Seattle is a team that can make a run. Houston is a team that has experience and can make a run. And the Angels are a star-studded team that if they continue to play like this and everyone stays healthy, they're going to win that division. And then the Central, they've got 2 good teams there. And then there's 3 good teams in their own division. I just don't see the Red Sox putting it together enough to make a playoff spot with these teams.
I can definitely get that. And when I say they have a chance at the second wild card, I mean like an outside. They would need for the East to beat up on each other, and they would have to do some of that beating up, which is a tall task, especially for this team with their pitching staff that they have. But I do believe they have enough offense to make noise and uh, potentially get that second wild card. It will be a long shot. Um, but I do believe they do a little bit better than 500, probably more like, I don't know, somewhere between 7 to 10 games above 500. And that could be enough, depending upon how the East beats up on each other, to squeak into the playoffs. Now, I don't believe
So
they'll make it past the wild card game, but I think they could squeak themselves into the playoffs. They have enough
I think
talent to
it's
do that.
also important to remember that the Red Sox, in recent years, have either been really good or really bad. There's not so much in between.
True. That is true. They are very mercurial. They go from one end of the
Yeah.
spectrum to the other, and it seems to be year to year. So there's also that to put in your hat. But speaking of bad baseball, let's talk about good baseball. It seems that there's an influx of talent. We got Ryan Helsley throwing a 103.1 mile per hour pitch. You got, I'm gonna let you say his name. How do you say his last name? Sean,
Sean
the
Jelly.
6'11. Sean Jelly. He's 6'11. We've watched Judge and Stanton thunder around the Yankee Stadium for years. Do you see a trend where there are athletes no longer running away from baseball, but actually coming to baseball?
Well, on that point, we saw that trend in the other direction. Most star athletes picking other sports for a number of different reasons. Mostly because you don't have to spend so much time in the minor leagues getting paid a criminal wage just to get a shot at the
Right.
big leagues. So at the end of the day, that's why we saw most of the really good athletes choose football. That's why Kyler Murray chose football. And I mean, yeah. So is it kind of coming back? Maybe. I don't know. I really don't know. It will be interesting to see next time there's an athlete that's really good at baseball, going to be a top pick in the MLB or a top pick in the NFL, to see which direction he goes. I don't think we've seen that since Kyler Murray. So it's hard for me to say on that. I think there are a lot of great athletes in baseball right now. But also a lot of these are coming from different countries where the NBA and Ronald Acuna comes to mind.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The basketball and football are not popular where Ronald Acuna is from. Baseball is, and he is a dynamic athlete. And so baseball was fortunate enough to get Ronald Acuna in that game. I think he could be good at some of these other sports as well because he's that good of an athlete. But I don't know. There are a lot of great athletes in baseball, and the sport is in a really good place because of it. Whether this continues, that remains to be seen. Whether it's starting to take more of a direction where players are choosing baseball over football, I really don't think we have that answer yet, and I don't think we're going to get that until we see another Kyler Murray-like decision.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it really comes down to the player choosing baseball over football at the end. I think the trend is changing much sooner in a lot of kids' lives. Like you look at Giancarlo Stanton, there was never talk about him being a football player because he played baseball his whole life. So I think the trend is changing simply because of the concussion issues we had. We're starting to see that change because there's been a dramatic change in Pee Wee football. There's been a drop in signups. Last I checked, was at like 62% of youth football signups for kids under the age of 13. Like the shift is happening by parents. It's not even athletes really making the change. It's parents making the decision for them when they're younger as to not wanting to put them on a football field and make sure that they accelerate the CTE they may have if they do decide later down the road they want to play football. And I think a lot of players have really started to pay attention to the money, and especially in the NFL with guaranteed money. Like, yes, there's big money in the NFL, but most players never see the full amount of their contract. They're normally getting traded or cut before the end of it or taking a pay cut to stay. In baseball, a contract is guaranteed from the moment you sign it. It does not matter what happens to you. Once you sign that contract, that money is yours. And I think a lot more parents, first off, and then athletes, secondly, are seeing that. And that's what's driving the change. It's not so much like the Kyler Murrays of the world choosing to stay with football or baseball. I think it's happening at a much younger age. And it's not even so much the athletes, it's the parents that are making the change.
No, I think that's a really good point, and there is definitely an influence of that. I know. I remember when I grew up, I really wanted to play football. Granted, I really don't have the body. I'm 6'4", 190. I would have been absolutely destroyed. But I definitely agree with that point that it's kind of starting to become like, no, don't do football. You're going to get hurt. But I think the culture behind it is also significant. What I mean by that is when you've got an athlete like Kyler Murray, the reason I brought that up is because I thought it was really indicative of where baseball was. He's got an opportunity
True.
to be a top pick in both sports, one that's going to put him at a greater risk of having long-term health issues in football, and then one where it's probably going to be much better, easier on his body, especially his brain. But that 4 to 6 years in the minors getting paid an unlivable wage is kind of glooming. So those athletes, I'm interested to see if Major League Baseball is able to rework the minor league system to a point that makes it more appealing to go the route of baseball as opposed to putting yourself at a health risk with going football. So I get your point. It's a really good point, and I completely agree with it. The reason I brought up Kyler Murray is because those athletes are going to continue to come across. Those are generational athletes that you want in your sport, whether it be baseball, football, basketball, whatever it is. You want them to be in your sport. And right now, they are consistently choosing football, and that's for the money. And
Yeah.
because of
And I mean,
of baseball's minor league system.
yeah. Yeah, you got a completely legitimate argument there. I'm not arguing that that's an illegitimate argument in any way. Um, and I do believe that if it came to that point and somebody did choose baseball, it would open the floodgates. So, and that's more of a marketing thing than it is a true trend. So I do believe that you are correct that if somebody in that situation was like, you know what, I am going to go play baseball, I don't care. But also that's also a little bit of a unicorn because Kyler Murray would have gotten millions of dollars either way because he would have been a first round pick in MLB. Like the dudes that are getting screwed in the minor leagues aren't the top prospects. Those top prospects still get $1 million plus signing bonuses that they can live on. It's the guys at the bottom of the roster, the
Sure.
low round picks, the 30th rounder, or the undrafted guy that was brought in. Those are the guys that get screwed. But Kyler Murray would have had money either way. So yes, him picking the
I mean,
NFL was
hold up. Kyler
significant
Murray's
because he would
contract
have
is
gotten
currently
money.
4 years, $35 million with a $23 million signing bonus, right? He is probably going to
Yes.
get an extension before the regular season starts, unless the Cardinals just don't want him to play because he said he won't play under that. I don't know
Right.
what he's done some questionable things this offseason. We won't get into that. But if he had chosen to go through baseball, there's a very good chance he's still in the minors right now, and he wouldn't be due up for his next contract until 6 years after. So the
Yeah,
whole
with the new
service time
CBA.
manipulation in Major League Baseball means that these players don't get a contract until they're likely nearing the end of their prime. That's why Chris Bryant just signed that money at 30 years
Yes.
old to go play in Colorado and try to,
Please
I
don't
don't know, use
remind me all
Coors
the
Field to
time.
boost his numbers.
Yeah, and it's
So
not
what I'm
working. He
saying
still
is
doesn't have a
that
home run.
isn't he hurt right now?
Yeah, he is. He's on the IL with the back issue.
Look, man, I watched Chris Bryant for a few months. I like Chris Bryant as a guy. He's just not worth that money.
No, he's not. Like I said before, the Rockies had to pay the suck tax, and that's what they have to do with
Sure.
every free agent. They have to overpay free agents. And I mean, how
They
crazy
don't
is
have
that?
to pay.
You have
They
to
don't have to
overpay.
pay free agents. They
No, they
don't.
don't have
They could have
to.
traded
But
Trevor
if they
Story,
want
gotten
one,
some really good prospects, built them up, and then maybe,
don't
I don't
remind me.
know, throw a team. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
know. I
we're
know.
getting off
Trust
on a
me. I
tangent.
know.
If you want to do a Rockies
Yeah.
segment, we can, especially because the Rockies and the Giants are playing for the next 3 days.
Yeah. Well, we could work on that for maybe the next show. But no, I get you 100% on that, and I really do believe. I mean, I know we can't really prove it, but I do see a trend that is being laid as we described. You know, since the concussions in the NFL, I really have seen a drop in the Pee Wee signups, all of those things. So we're seeing that trickle down effect as of right now. So that's my
Well, we
opinion.
can
It looks
see
like
what the
Quinn's a little bit
NFL
more on the
does to
fence.
combat. We can see what the NFL does to
That's the
combat
next thing.
CD and concussions. They've tried, but
Yes.
that league has so much to work on. That's their thing. We know what Major League
Yes.
Baseball has to work on. The NFL has their own stuff to work on. I feel like the only league really doing it right is the NBA.
I swear they're the only ones. They're the only ones that.
I mean, they've got an incredible commissioner, and they had an incredible
That's the
commissioner
thing.
prior to this incredible commissioner.
Yeah, instead of going from a great one to a crappy one, they actually did it right and found the right guy. So 100% there. It's going to come down a lot to whether or not Manfred gets to keep his job, I believe. I believe if they could go find a good commissioner, the game of baseball is wonderful. The only reason people think that it sucks is because there's no marketing to show them otherwise. Nobody knows
Absolutely.
who the stars of MLB are. Nobody. Outside of actual baseball heads like you and me, nobody knows who the true stars. Outside, they might know Shohei Ohtani or, I don't know, Mike Trout maybe, but those are the only two guys, and they both play on the same team.
It's funny when you said stars of baseball, those are the first two guys that came to my mind, even though there are so many stars. I was just like Shohei and Mike Trout.
Yes. And that's just because they play otherworldly. And Shohei does something nobody else has done really ever. Like, I know a lot of people want to bring up Babe Ruth, but at this point, with what Shohei did last year, I don't even think that you can put Babe Ruth in his category. If that kid continues to play,
No.
Ways.
Stop.
What?
Babe Ruth gets a lot of hate. Babe Ruth gets a lot of hate because of his competition. But Babe Ruth, because he played in that time against those people, it's all relative, right? The game is relative. It's different now, but he was so much better than everybody else that played. Shohei is really great at both hitting and pitching, but Babe Ruth was so much better. Let
me finish. Okay. Well, I was not disrespecting the Babe. I am an old head. I give Babe Ruth all the credit in the world, but he only pitched in the majors for like a year and a half. Yes, his numbers were nuts. What I'm saying is, if Ohtani can continue to do what he's doing right now, both pitching and hitting, and stealing bases, because Babe Ruth didn't even steal bases like that. He's got that. He's got that and a stronger arm than Babe Ruth ever had. Okay?
Yeah, no, Ohtani's special.
He's on a whole nother level. So if he can stay healthy and he keeps doing what he's doing, he will be the GOAT. Plain and simple.
Absolutely.
Because he can do it on both sides dominantly. That's where I was
absolutely.
getting.
Ohtani's
I wasn't
special.
trying to disrespect Babe.
Ohtani's special. It's great to see him play. He's so good for the game. He is the face of baseball right now, and we need to lean into that.
Yes.
But it's just the fact that Babe Ruth was so much better than his competition. It was something that I think kind of gets lost just because people use his competition to discredit what he did.
Him, yes. Yeah, no. You will not see me bash the Babe at all. I love me some Babe Ruth. Like that's one of my favorite guys from history. He's just below Jackie Robinson to me when it comes to stories and just lore. I mean, just the legends around Babe Ruth are absolutely amazing. So no Babe disrespect here. I'm just saying Ohtani can be better because he is just flat out a better player. Like that's no disrespect to the Babe, but when it comes to pound for pound athleticism, you can't put Babe and Shohei in the same box.
Sure.
You just can't. They're just
Okay.
different players.
I'll accept that.
That's my thing. Okay. As long as we have some acceptance there. And I think that's the perfect place to leave it. We just hit an hour. We've had some great talks, some great takes. So Jesus, if I can get my throat together. For the West is Best podcast, I am your host, Dan Wetstein. That is my co-host. I'm going to get this. That is my co-host, Quinn Thomas. On the answer is 42. Don't question the blue.